Hey guys, it's me, Pokemon. I have a really exciting video for Marvel Strike Force coming up today. Now, this one I actually worked with the subreddit last night, and I was able to produce a tier list. I had a first edition tier list, and let's just say people didn't necessarily agree on it. I worked with a couple people on the Discord to then improve this version of it, and some of them wanted a little bit of a shout out. So thanks to Nevik, Insomnia, Hellhawk, Nero, Aztec, etc., etc. You guys, I wouldn't have been able to have this tier list without you guys. And there were so many other people on the Discord that put in their opinions that allowed this tier list to become the best versions of itself that it could be. And I plan to keep on updating this tier list, and hopefully this can be a video we do every single time we have an update. Every time we get a new character, every time there's a balance change, I'll try to update this, and I can talk about it, and we can all get super excited about everything happening in Marvel Strike Force. So I'm not going to go through every single character on the tier list because that would take forever, but I'm going to go through like the S tier list and maybe a little bit of the lower tier list to talk about why I don't necessarily like them. But let's go through the S tier list first. So one real quick thing to note is almost all the minions in this game haven't been included. I don't like the minions. They only have 2 skills compared to heroes that have 3, so they're just worse than heroes. But there is one minion that I heard so much about that I was demanded to put him on the list, and it is Hand Sentry. Now you might be like, well, why does everyone like Hand Sentry? And from what I can understand, it's kind of because he's like a Black Widow Jr. He can apply stealth to all his allies except himself for 2 turns, and he'll apply evade to his allies. So he can essentially protect his allies for a couple turns. I mean, of course he'll die, but he'll protect his allies so that way they can pull off their big abilities. So say you have, like, I don't know, maybe a Rocket Raccoon or something, or a Bullseye, or an Iron Man who are a little more squishy. You can make them invisible, and then they can go pull off their super strong attacks without having to worry about getting killed. Captain America, another liked character. He's just a solid tank, a great taunt, defense up. His block chance is excellent whenever he has Avengers. He has a very high block chance, and from what I understand, that decreases the damage he'll take if he blocks it. Shield throw, it's a good skill. I mean, it's nothing mind-blowing, but he's just really tanky, and his DPS isn't actually too bad. So next on the list we have Quake. So I'd assume a lot of people like her, one, because she's a really easy character to get. Tons of avenues for farming her, at least there used to be, so almost everybody in the closed beta has Quake. I assume she's still relatively easy to farm nowadays. And another reason why everybody likes her is because she's a massive AoE damage. Almost all of her skills are AoE or have a chance to AoE, and she can slow down enemies, I believe. Yes, with her basic attack, she can slow down enemies, so that's awesome. I mean, she just has huge AoE. If you're ever fighting waves of enemies, she can, for a basic attack, it can attack the primary target and up to 10 adjacent targets. Like, that's the kind of AoE we're talking about here. And her ultimate Earthquake does a massive amount of damage too, and it'll apply offense down. Just a solid character all around. She is a little squishy, but she still does excellent damage. Gamora's in the same vein of Quake, except she specializes in single target damage. She's a little squishy, but her damage is off the charts. And the really cool thing about her is her second and third skill. If she manages to kill someone with it, it'll fill her speed bar up to 100%, so she can essentially go again. Now let's look at her third skill real quick. If you get it up to the max, we can have her right now. It's 370% of her base damage, and she has pretty high damage. So essentially what you're looking at is she can do like 11,000 plus damage to a character. So if you have someone at like 4th health, she'll get to attack them with her third skill. She'll most likely kill them, and then she can move off to someone else on the enemy team and then attack them as well. So just a solid character all around for PvP and PvE. Now, Drax wasn't an S tier until launch. People believe Drax is an S tier nowadays because he got a taunt on his second skill. He used to not have the taunt. Before then, he had pretty nice damage, and he had drain on his skill, so that means he had essentially lifesteal. But now that he gets a taunt on his second skill that he can proc, it's just a very great skill. Plus, he starts with taunt, so he has a ton of taunt. He's a very great tank, very tanky. He's a solid pick for your team. Last but not least, we have Black Widow, who's essentially the queen of Marvel Strike Force. Now, this character you'll see on nearly every PvP game. What's so great about her? She can apply speed up to her allies, and in a turn-based game, applying speed up to yourself, and if you had someone like Quake applying speed down to the enemies, you're going to be running laps around them. So she's just an excellent character for her utility. The speed up can change characters who are bad, like maybe Thor or Hulk, who are a little slower. She can turn them into great characters because now that takes away one of their major weaknesses. Her damage is pretty okay too, but you're not picking her up for her damage. You're picking her up because of her incredible speed boost to her team. I figured we'd take a quick look at some of the characters that really aren't that great in the game. Iron Fist, a big reason why a lot of people don't like him is a lot of characters have a burst skill in this game that does a massive amount of damage. Well, Iron Fist has that, except for the fact that he hurts himself when he does it. He gets offense down. I really don't feel like that's necessary on his third skill. I'd like it if they potentially remove that. His second skill, he heals himself, and it does a good amount of healing, plus he'll clear negative effects from himself, but it's just not all that great. And then aside from that, he can just punch people, and he doesn't even do that much damage when he punches, so essentially most of the time you're just going to be punching people. Compared to other characters, his utility is nowhere as high as them. Now, Ronan is another character that falls into the E tier, so you might be like, why is Ronan so bad? He has a heal, he can attack all the enemies, he seems like a really good character because of all those AoEs. Well, his heal AoE will only heal Kree allies, so he needs a very specific team comp in order to succeed in a game. So you need to be using like Nebula, Karath, both characters that aren't all that great. So if they removed the only Kree healing, he'd probably rise up in the tier list, but right now because of that, he's just not that great. Jessica Jones is also down on this tier list because her damage just isn't all that great. She has her third skill, which it does damage, and it's not bad, but it's only single target damage, so it's not all that great. She can clear negative effects from herself, but it's not, it's okay. Is that really all that great? Generate a little bit of energy, not all that useful. And she falls into the same thing as Iron Fist, where her third skill is lackluster, and then her first skill doesn't do much to pull her out of the pit. Some other characters we don't find so good in the game is Bullseye. He was nerfed in this past patch with his ultimate. He's just a really squishy character. He does have reasonably decent DPS, but just you'd be better off using a lot of other DPS characters if you need DPS. Nebula, another character who their DPS just kind of lacks. I've never found a use for Nebula personally. I know some people have had a little bit more success with her, but I just don't find her all that useful in the current meta. Scientist Supreme is another character I actually really like Scientist Supreme, but she just isn't all that great. The whole idea of Scientist Supreme's kit is she'll heal her team, and then she applies negative effects to her team, and then the next time she goes, she'll flip all those negative effects to positive effects, but it's just not all that great because essentially you have to go through a whole turn with your team having negative effects just because that's how Scientist Supreme works. It'd be something if maybe after she gave the team the negative effects, she'd get a speed boost or something to then flip them. As of now, you're essentially just spending a whole round with a much weaker version of your team, and you're just hoping that Scientist Supreme can make it to the next round to fix all the mistakes she caused. You're better off using any other healer who just heals their team without hurting their team. I'd like it if her skills just applied buffs to her allies and that was it, and then they had a chance to apply debuffs to enemies. I don't like the chance to apply debuff to your allies. So overall, in terms of this roster, if a character falls C or above, I think they're in a decent place in the meta. If they're D or below, I think they need changes so that way they're a better character. Those are my opinions on the characters and part of the Discord's opinions on the characters. I do highly encourage you guys to put your opinions down below. I know some people find characters more useful, some people find characters less useful. This is my opinion and what I've heard from the community. This will vary per person, but if you're a new player to the game, I think this will lead you in the right direction on who to build and who to maybe not build. I highly encourage you guys to share this tier list with your friends. Hopefully this can up the communal knowledge about Marvel Strike Force. And if you maybe want to, you could maybe note the fact that it was created by me, the Pokemon, with the help of the Discord, so you know, subscribe to the Pokemon. Just throwing that out there. Maybe when you share that with your good old friend, maybe once Satan looks at the tier list, maybe he'll be like, oh, this Pokemon guy, really good guy. I don't know, right, Satan? Come on, Satan, we're bros. But hey guys, what do I know about the tier list of Marvel Strike Force? I am just a 16-year-old after all. Signing off, guys. Man, that video is exciting. Tier lists are exciting, guys. Woo!